Brethren, today I have taken a demonstration from Solomon entitled The First Degree Tracing Board in Modern English, which I have shortened somewhat so that I can give it as a presentation. For those of you who wish to see and read the full version, please refer to the PDF attachment to the original email. I shall be taking the part of the Worshipful Master, the narrator, and a short passage led by the Director of Ceremonies for all of the brethren attending at the end. Of course, a number of other brethren could take part. The narrator's part could be split up into several smaller parts for different brothers to undertake. So, brethren, to commence, the Worshipful Master stands and addresses the brethren. Brethren, our ritual informs us that the tracing board was used by the Master to lay lines and draw designs. Operative masons would have used his drawings to carry out their parts of the construction. Our tracing boards have evolved a similar purpose in that they display many of the symbols and stories of Freemasonry, which we can use to build and develop ourselves. The narrator, now in front of the tracing board with a number of the junior brethren, commences. On the tracing board, we can see a number of symbols. We can moralize on them, by which we mean that we can use them to represent our moral principles and values. This was a common form of instruction in earlier times, and by studying them in this way, we find that every character and emblem shown will help or guide us to understand the important principles of piety and virtue. When you entered this lodge as an initiate, you were symbolically blind. Your eyes were opened later, and you began your journey of Masonic learning towards truth. At the moment when the blessing of light was restored to you, the first things you saw were the volume of the sacred law, the compasses, and the square. I have no doubt you remember their meanings. Taken together, they are known as the furniture of the lodge. The volume of the sacred law was given to us to rule and govern our faith. It is on this that we obligate our candidates. When united, the compasses and square are to regulate our lives and actions. The compasses belong to the Grand Master in particular, and the square to the whole craft. In all regularly formed lodges, there is a point within a circle. While you remain within its boundary, you cannot go astray. The circle is bound to the north and south by two parallel lines, one representing Moses, the other Solomon. In going around the circle, you will encounter both these lines, and you are encouraged to follow the doctrines of the volume of the sacred law as closely as those two, so that you may reach that part of the circle where it rests. You will see that Jacob's ladder is shown resting on the open book, and this might be interpreted as the starting point of your climb to the light that is revealed at its top. This light comes from the blazing star, which is a symbol implying closeness to the divine presence. The volume of the sacred law may be considered as the spiritual tracing board of the great architect of the universe, in which were laid down the divine laws and moral plans. You are expected to follow these in all your aspects of life. Through faith in divine providence, you will be able to take first step on the ladder. You will note that there are many rungs, representing moral virtues. However, there are three main steps on which we see symbols representing faith, hope, and charity. Faith in the great architect of the universe, hope in salvation, and to be in charity with all men. Your faith will naturally create in you the hope that you will be able to benefit from the divine promises contained in the volume of the sacred law to progress further up the ladder. Charity, in its fullest sense, embraces the other virtues. It is the brightest ornament for a Freemason. If he is in charity in his heart, he will find himself able to reach the top of the ladder, where he will be near that wonderful light and ethereal mansion hidden behind the starry veil, represented here by 7 stars. These will also remind you that no lodge is perfect, unless at least 7 brethren are present. There are 3 immovable jewels in the lodge: the tracing board, the rough ashlar, and the perfect ashlar. They are immobile and placed in full view so that the brethren can moralize on them. The tracing board has already been explained, so now we turn our attention to the ashlars. Once initiated, you might compare yourself to the rough ashlar, a stone that is taken from the quarry in its rough state. It is intended to use the stone in the structure, but without more work, it is not ready to be used. When the working tools were explained to you, you will remember that the 24-inch gauge was to measure our work, the common gavel to knock off all superfluous knobs and excrescences, and the chisel to further smooth and prepare the stone, and render it fit for the hands of the more expert workman. The alternative meanings of these symbols for Freemasons were also given to you. They should remind you of the proper use of time, of the need to follow your conscience, and of the value of education. We might reflect that, through the instruction and education provided by his parents, teachers, and mentors, the character of a man develops to the point when he is ready to become a fit member of regularly organized society. Your journey may therefore be described by reference to the process of turning the rough ashlar into the perfect ashlar, which is a square-cut stone, a perfectly formed building block, which should only be tested by the square and compasses. It may be said to represent a man in the autumn of his well-spent life, who will be tried by the square of God's word and the compasses of his own conscience. You will note that the perfect ashlar is shown below the Lewis, a tripod with a cord and a pulley, to which the ashlar is attached by a cord fixed to it by a cramp, so it can be raised with little effort to correct height for carefully positioning it in its intended place. The Lewis represents the son of a mason and reminds us of the interdependence of man and his parents, who looked after him and taught him when he was in his infancy. As they become aged and more dependent on others, the man owes them support and protection. Now, let us turn our attention to the lodge itself. Our lodges are said to stand on holy ground, as they are dedicated before God. We deem them to be aligned on an east-west axis. 3 reasons are given to explain this. First, the sun, the glory of the Lord, rises in the east and sets in the west. Second, it was believed that learning originated in the east and spread its positive influence westward. And third, the orientation of a lodge is the same as that of the tabernacle that Moses made, as instructed by God. The extent of the lodge is described in vast terms. In length, it reaches from east to west, in breadth from north to south, in depth from the surface of the earth to the centre, and even as high as the heavens. This reminds us of the universality of science. It also reminds us that a Mason's charity should know no limits, except those dictated by prudence. We say that a lodge is supported by 3 great pillars, known as wisdom, strength, and beauty. Wisdom that will assist us in all that we do, strength that we may call on when we face difficulties, and beauty of spirit that will show in our characters. These pillars are shown as columns of Ionic, Doric, and Corinthian orders of architecture. You will also observe these columns on the pedestals of the Master and the Wardens. The universe may be considered to be the temple of God. wisdom, strength, and beauty are found around his throne as pillars of his works. For his wisdom is infinite, his strength omnipotent, and beauty shines through the whole of creation and is visible in its order and symmetries. He has created the heavens as a canopy and the earth as his footstool. He has crowned the heavens with stars. The sun and moon are messengers of his will, and all his law is concord. The three great pillars are emblematic of these divine attributes. Next, let us consider the ornaments of the lodge. They are the mosaic pavement, the blazing star, and the indented or tessellated border. The mosaic pavement is the beautiful flooring of the lodge. Excuse me. Its checkered pattern of black and white represents the steps we take through life and its uncertainties. Sometimes we may walk across the sands of time in prosperity, but at other times we may stagger on the uneven paths of weakness, temptation, or adversity. The emblem of the floor, which we see before our eyes, warns us against boasting of anything and reminds us to walk uprightly with humility before God. No matter what our calling in life, we must keep in mind that when death destroys all distinctions, we will all be one level. As we cross this mosaic carpet in our journey through life, may it remind us to act with reason, practice charity, maintain harmony, and endeavour to live in unity and brotherly love. You have been told about the 3 immovable jewels, and now we turn to the 3 movable jewels. They are the square, the level, and the plumb rule. Among speculative masons, the square teaches morality, the level equality, and the plumb rule justness and uprightness of life. These jewels are the emblems of the worshipful master, the senior warden and the junior warden. They are called movable jewels because they are passed on to the new officers each year at the installation ceremony. In the corners of the tracing board, we see 4 tassels. In some lodges, they are also displayed in the corners of the room or the corners of the carpet. The architect marks out the boundaries of the building with cords. At the corners, he knots them to a post and leaves the frayed end loose. The tassels symbolize those frayed ends and are therefore associated with the boundaries of behavior. They remind us of the 4 cardinal virtues: temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. Temperance gives us control over our emotions. We are expected to restrain our passions by avoiding excess and embracing moderation. Fortitude lies midway between rashness and cowardice. It enables us to suffer pain or distress when necessary. Prudence teaches us to apply reason to our actions. As a result, we will form opinions wisely and carefully decide on all matters that relate to our happiness. Justice should be a guide of all our actions. It requires us to deal fairly with all men without distinction. It is the cement that binds society together. The worshipful master now takes over in this summary. In the course of this presentation, many of the symbols and emblems to be found in the lodge have been illustrated. During your progression through the 3 degrees, you will learn more about these and others. Let us end by reminding you that the 3 characteristics of a Freemason's heart are virtue, honour, and mercy, and may they ever be found in a Freemason's breast. Brethren, it was usual to make a charge at the end of each section of one of the lectures. This is the charge from the 6th section of the 1st lecture. The Director of Ceremonies will direct your seated response. And so the Director of Ceremonies leads the brethren by saying, "May brotherly love, relief and truth, in conjunction with temperance, fortitude, prudence and justice, distinguish free and accepted Masons till time shall be no more." And that, brethren, is the first degree tracing board in modern English. In summary, our ritual is firmly rooted in the 18th and 19th centuries, and some of the words are no longer used in everyday conversation. This presentation used modern language to explain the first degree tracing board. Brethren, for those of you who might be interested, my mother lodge, which is Taunton Dean Lodge number 5221, in February of each year gives a demonstration of the 18 parts of the first degree lecture. Should any brother like to participate and see this presentation, it is the first Thursday in February annually. Please contact the lodge secretary to register your interest in attending. Thank you all for your kind attention, and I hope you have found this interesting. Thank you, brethren.